Hare Krishna. Am I audible? Hare Krishna. Am I audible?
Yes, you are audible.
Thank you. Start with the pranam mantras. ओम अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मीलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। नमः ओम विष्णुपदाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्तस्वामीति नामिने। नमः ओम विष्णुपदाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्तस्वामीति नामिने। नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशकारिणे। वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्यो च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे. So we were reading the Pandavas retiring timely after Bhishma, the Dhritarashtra leaves, so Pandava Krishna leaves. So now the Pandavas are trying to retire to their destinations. Let me share this. Hare Krishna, Sri Ganesh Babu, you can read the 7th sloka.
Hare Krishna. Translation. Only by his merciful strength was I able to vanquish all the lusty princes assembled at the palace of King Drupada for the selection of the bridegroom. With my bow and arrow, I could pierce the fish target and thereby gain the hand of Draupadi. Purport. Draupadi was the most beautiful daughter of King Drupada, and when she was a young girl, almost all the princes desired her hand. But Drupada Maharaja decided to hand over his daughter to Arjuna only, and therefore continued a peculiar way. There was a fish hanging on the inner roof of the house under the protection of wheel. The condition was that out of princely order, one must be able to pierce the fish eye through the wheel of protection, and no one would be allowed to look upon the target. On the ground, there was a water pool in which the target and the wheel were reflected, and one had to fix his aim towards the target by looking at the trembling water in the pot. Maharaja Drupada well known that only Arjuna or alternatively Karna could successfully carry out the plan, but still he wanted to hand his daughter to Arjuna. And in the assembly of the princely order, when Drishtadyumna, the brother of Draupadi, introduced all the princes to his grown-up sister, Karna was also present in the game. But Draupadi tactfully avoided Karna as a rival of Arjuna, and she expressed her desire through her brother Drishtadyumna that she was unable to accept anyone who was less than a Kshatriya. The Vaishyas and the Sudras are less important than Kshatriya. Karna was also known as a son of carpenter, a Sudra. So Draupadi avoided Karna by this plea. When Arjuna, in the dress of a poor Brahmana, pierced that difficult target, everyone was astonished. And all of them, especially Karna, offered a stiff fight to Arjuna. But as usual, by the grace of Lord Krishna, he was able to emerge very successful in the princely fight and thus gain the valuable hand of Krishna or Draupadi. Arjuna was laminatingly remembering the incident in the absence of Lord, whose strength only he was so powerful. By whose strength only he was so powerful. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Text 8. Hare Krishna, Satya Mataji. Translation.
Hare Krishna. Translation. Because he was near me, it was possible for me to conquer with great dexterity the powerful king of heaven, Indradeva, along with his demigod associates, and thus enable the fire god to devastate the Pandava forest. And only by his grace was the demon named Maya saved from the blazing Khandava forest, and thus we could build our assembly house of wonderful architectural workmanship, where all the princes assembled during the performance of Rajasuya Yagna and paid your tributes. Purport. The demon Maya Danava was an inhabitant of the forest Khandava, and when the Khandava forest was set on fire, he asked protection from Arjuna. Arjuna saved his life, and as a result of this, the demon felt obliged. He reciprocated by building a wonderful assembly house for the Pandavas, which attracted the extraordinary attention of all state princes. They felt the supernatural power of the Pandavas, and thus, without grudge, all of them submitted and paid tributes to the emperor. The demons possess wonderful and supernatural powers to create material wonders, but they are always disturbing elements of the society. The modern demons are the harmful material scientists who create some material wonders for disturbance in the society. For example, the creation of nuclear weapons has caused some panic in human society. Maya was also a materialistic Maya was also a materialist like that, and he knew the art of creating such wonderful things, and yet Lord Krishna wanted to kill him. When he was chased both by the fire and the wheel of Lord Krishna, he took shelter of a devotee as Arjuna, who saved him from the wrath of the fire of Lord Sri Krishna. Devotees are therefore more merciful than the Lord, and in devotional service, the mercy of a devotee is more valuable than the mercy of Lord. Both the fire and the Lord ceased from chasing the demon as soon as both of them saw that the demon was given shelter by such a devotee as Arjuna. This demon, feeling obliged to Arjuna, wanted to do him some service to show his gratefulness, but Arjuna declined to accept anything from him in exchange. Lord Sri Krishna, however, being pleased with Maya for his taking shelter of a devotee, asked him to render service unto King Yudhishthira by building a wonderful assembly house. The process is that by the grace of the devotee, the mercy of the Lord is obtained. And by the mercy of the Lord, a chance to serve the Lord's devotee is obtained. The club of Bhimasena was also a gift of Maya Dhanava. Hare Krishna.
Next 9. Hare Krishna, Abhishek. Next 9.
Hare Krishna. Translation. Your respectable younger brother who possesses the strength of 10,000 elephants killed by his grace. Jarasandha, whose feet were worshipped by many kings. These kings had been brought for sacrifice in Jarasandha's Mahabhairava Yagna, but they were thus released. Later they paid tribute to your majesty. Purport. Jarasandha was a very powerful king of Magadha, and the history of his birth and activities is also very interesting. His father, King Brihadratha, was also a very prosperous and powerful king of Magadha, but he had no son, although he married 2 daughters of the king of Kasi. Being disappointed in not getting a son from either of the queens, the king, along with his wives, left home to live in the forest for austerities. But in the forest, he was benedicted by one great rishi to have a son, and he gave him one mango to be eaten by the queens. The queens did so and were very soon pregnant. The king was very happy to see the queens bearing children, but when the ripe time approached, the queens delivered one child in 2 parts, one from each of the queens' wombs. The 2 parts were thrown in the forest where a great she-demon used to live, and she was glad to have some delicate flesh and blood from the newly born child. Out of curiosity, she joined the 2 parts, and the child became complete and regained life. The she-demon was known as Jara, and being compassionate on childless king, she went to the king and presented him with the nice child. The king was very pleased with the she-demon and wanted to reward her according to her desire. The she-demon expressed her desire that the child be named after her, and thus the child was surnamed Jarasandha, and one who was joined by Jara, the she-demon. In fact, this Jarasandha was born as one of the parts and parcels of demon Viprachitti, the saint by whose benedictions the queens bore the child was called Chandra Kaushika, who foretold of the child before his father Brihadatta. Okay. Since Jarasandha possessed demoniac qualities from birth, naturally he became a great devotee of Lord Shiva, the lord of all ghostly and demoniac men. Ravana was a great devotee of Shiva and so also Jarasandha. He used to sacrifice all arrested kings before Lord Mahabhairava Shiva, and by his military power, he defeated many small kings and arrested them to butcher before Mahabhairava. There are many devotees of Lord Mahabhairava or Kalabhairava in the province of Bihar, formerly called Magadha. Jarasandha was a relative of Kamsa, the maternal uncle of Krishna, and therefore, after Kamsa's death, King Jarasandha became a great enemy of Krishna. And there were many fights between Jarasandha and Krishna. Lord Krishna wanted to kill him, but he also wanted that those who served as military men for Jarasandha might not be killed. Therefore, a plan was adopted to kill him. Krishna, Bhima, and Arjuna together went to Jarasandha in the dress of poor Brahmanas and begged charity from King Jarasandha. Jarasandha never refused charity to any Brahmana, and he performed many sacrifices also. Yet he was not on a par with devotional service. Lord Krishna, Bhima, and Arjuna asked Jarasandha for the facility of fighting him, and it was settled that Jarasandha would fight with Bhima only. So all of them were both guests and combatants of Jarasandha. And Bhima and Jarasandha fought every day for several days. Bhima became disappointed, but Krishna gave him hints about Jarasandha's being joined together as an infant. And thus Bhima dissected him again and so killed him. All the kings who were detained in the concentration camp to be killed before Mahabhairava were thus released by Bhima. Feeling thus obliged to the Pandavas, they paid tribute to King Yudhishthira. Hare Krishna.
Thanks. Translation. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Translation. It was he only who loosened the hair of all the wives of the miscreants who dared open the cluster of your queen's hair, which had been nicely dressed and sanitized for the great Rajasuya sacrificial ceremony. At that time, she fell down at the feet of Lord Krishna with tears in her eyes. Purport. Queen Draupadi had a beautiful bunch of hair which was sanctified in the ceremonial function of Rajasuya Yajna. But when she was lost in a bed, Dushasana touched her glorified hair to insult her. Draupadi then fell down at the lotus feet of Lord Krishna, and Lord Krishna decided that all the wives of Dushasana and company should have their hair loosened as a result of the battle of Kurukshetra. Thus, after the battle of Kurukshetra, after all the sons and the grandsons of Dhritarashtra died in battle, all the wives of the family were obliged to loosen their hair as widows. In other words, all the wives of the Kuruk family became widows because of Dushasana insulting a great devotee of the Lord. The Lord can tolerate insults upon himself by any miscreant because of the father tolerates even insults from the son. But he never tolerates insults upon his devotees by insulting a great soul. One has to forego all the results of pious acts and benedictions also. Hare Krishna.
Translation purpose. Hare Krishna, Sri Ganesh.
Hare Krishna. Translation. During our exile, Durvasa Muni, who eats with his 10,000 disciples, interviewed with our enemies to put us in dangerous trouble. At that time, Lord Krishna, simply by accepting the remnants of food, saved us. By his accepting food, thus the assembly of Munis, while bathing in river, felt sumptuously fed, and all the three worlds were also satisfied. Purpose. Durvasa Muni, a powerful mystic Brahmana, determined to observe the principles of religion with great vows and under strict austerities. His name is associated with many historical events, and it appears that a great mystic could be both easily satisfied and easily annoyed, like Lord Shiva. When he was satisfied, he could do tremendous good to the servitor. But if he was dissatisfied, he could bring about the greatest calamity. Kumari Kunti at her father's house used to ministered all kinds of service to all great Brahmanas. And being satisfied with her good reception, Durvasa Muni benedicted her with the powerful to call any demigod she desired. It is understood that he was a plenary incarnation of Lord Shiva, and thus he could be either easily satisfied or annoyed. He was a great devotee of Lord Shiva, and by Lord Shiva's order, he accepted that priesthood of the king Sveta Ketu because of king's performance of sacrifice for 100 years. Sometimes he used to visit parliamentary assembly of the heavenly kingdom of Indradeva. He could travel in space by his great mystic powers. And it is understood that he traveled a great distance to space, even up to the Vaikuntha planets beyond material space. He traveled these long distance within 1 year during his quarrel with King Ambarisha, the great devotee and emperor of the world. He had about 10,000 disciples, and whenever he visits and became a guest of great Kshatriya king, he used to be accompanied by a number of followers. Once he visited the house of Duryodhana, the enemy cousin of Maharaja Yudhishthira, Duryodhana was intelligent enough to satisfy the Brahmana by all means. And the great Rishi wanted to give some benediction to Duryodhana. Duryodhana knew his mystic powers, and he knew also the mystic Brahmana, if dissatisfied, could cause some havoc. And thus, he designed to engage the Brahmana to show his wrath upon his enemy cousins Pandavas. When Rishi wanted to award some benediction to Duryodhana, the latter wished that he should visit the house of Maharaja Yudhishthira, who was the eldest and chief among his cousins. But by his request, he would go to him after he had finished his meals with his queen, Draupadi. Duryodhana knew that after Draupadi's dinner, it would be impossible for Maharaja Yudhishthira to receive such a large number of Brahmana guests. And thus the Rishi would be annoyed and would create some trouble for his cousin Maharaja Yudhishthira. That was the plan of Duryodhana. Durvasa Muni agreed to his proposal, and he approached the king in exile, according to the plan of Duryodhana, after the king and Draupadi had finished their meals. On his arrival at the door of Maharaja Yudhishthira, he was at once well received, and the king requested him to finish his noontime religious rites in the river. But by the time the foodstuff would be prepared, Durvasa Muni, along with his large number of disciples, went to take a bath in river, and Maharaja Yudhishthira was in great anxiety about the guests. As long as Draupadi had not taken her meals, food could be served to any number of guests. But the Rishi, by the plan of Duryodhana, reached there after Draupadi had finished her meals. When the devotees are put in difficulties, they have an opportunity to recollect the Lord with rapt attention. So Draupadi was thinking of Lord Krishna in the dangerous position. And the all-pervading Lord could at once know the dangerous position of his devotees. He therefore came there on the scene and asked Draupadi to give whatever food she might have in her stock, on her being so requested by the Lord. Draupadi was sorrowful because the Supreme Lord asked her for some food and she was unable to supply it at that time. She said to the Lord that the mysterious dish which she had received from the sun god could supply any amount of food if she herself had not eaten. But on that day, she had already taken her meals, and thus they were in danger. By expressing her difficulties, she began to cry before the Lord, as only a woman would do in such a position. The doll, however, asked Draupadi to bring up the cooking pots to see if there was any particular foodstuff left. And on Draupadi's doing so, the Lord found some particular vegetable sticking in the pot. The Lord at once picked it up and ate it. After doing so, the Lord asked Draupadi to call her guests, and the company of Durvasa. Bhima was sent to call them from the river. Bhima said, "Why are you delaying, sirs? Come on, the food is ready for you." But the Brahmanas, because of Lord's accepting a little particle of food, felt sumptuously fed. Even while they were in water, they thought that since Maharaja Yudhishthira must have prepared many valuable dishes for them, and since they were not hungry and could not eat, the king would feel very sorry. So it was better not to go there. Thus, they decided to go away. This incident proves that the Lord is the greatest mystic, and therefore he is known as Yogeshwara. Another instruction is that every householder must offer food to the Lord. The result will be that everyone, even a company of guests number 10,000, will be satisfied because the Lord's being satisfied. This is the way of devotional service. Hare Krishna.
Next 12. Hare Krishna Sapna Mataji.
Hare Krishna. Prabhu. Translation. It was by his influence only that in the fight I was able to astonish the Supreme Personality of God, Lord Shiva and his wife, the daughter of the Mount Himalaya. Thus he, Lord Shiva, became pleased with me and awarded me his own weapon. Other demigods also delivered their respective weapons to me. And in addition, I was able to reach the heavenly planets in this present body and was allowed a half elevated seat. Purport. By the grace of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, all the demigods, including Lord Shiva, were pleased with Arjuna. The idea is that one who is favored by Lord Shiva or any other demigod may not necessarily be favored by the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna. Ravana was certainly a great devotee of Lord Shiva, but he could not be saved from the wrath of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Ramachandra. And there are many instances like that in the histories of the Puranas. But here is an instance where we can see that Lord Shiva became pleased even in the fight with Arjuna. The devotees of the Supreme Lord know how to respect the demigods. But the devotees of the demigods sometimes foolishly think that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is no greater than the demigods. By such a conception, one becomes an offender and ultimately meets with the same end as Ravana and others. The instances described by Arjuna during his friendly dealings with Lord Sri Krishna are instructive for all who may be convinced by the lessons that one can achieve all favors simply by pleasing the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna. Whereas the devotees or worshippers of the demigods may achieve only partial benefits, which are also perishable, just as the demigod themselves are. Another significance of the present verse is that Arjuna, by the grace of Lord Sri Krishna, was able to reach the heavenly planet, even with the self-same body, and was honored by the heavenly demigod Indradeva, being seated with him half elevated. One can reach the heavenly planets by the pious acts recommended in the Shastras in the category of fruitive activities. And as stated in the Bhagavad Gita 9.21, when the reactions of such pious acts are spent, the enjoyer is again degraded to this earthly planet. The moon is also on the level with the heavenly planets, and only persons who have performed virtues only, performing sacrifices, giving charity, and undergoing severe austerities can be allowed to enter into the heavenly planets after the duration of life of the body. Arjuna was allowed to enter into the heavenly planet in the self-same body simply by the grace of the Lord. Otherwise, it is not possible to do so. The present attempts to enter into the heavenly planet by the modern scientists will certainly prove futile because such scientists are not on the level of Arjuna. They are ordinary human beings without any assets of sacrifice, charity, austerities. The material body is influenced by three modes of material nature, namely goodness, passion, ignorance. The present population is more or less influenced by the modes of passion and ignorance, and the symptoms of such influence are exhibited in their becoming very lusty and greedy. Such degraded fellows can hardly approach the higher planetary systems. Above the heavenly planets, there are many other planets also, which only those who are influenced by goodness can reach. In heavenly and other planets within the universe, the inhabitants are all highly intelligent, many more times than the human beings, and other are all pious in the higher and highest mode of goodness. They are all devotees of the Lord, and although their goodness is not unadulterated, still they are known as demigods, possessing the maximum amount of good qualities possible within the material world. Hare Krishna.
Second sloka. Hare Krishna, Srinivas Prabhuji, will you be able to read?
Hello.
Yes.
Hare Prabhuji.
You are audible.
Okay. I'm actually joining after some time. So should I start reading from the translation?
Yeah, you can read the translation and continue.
Okay. When I stayed for some days as a guest in the heavenly planets, all the heavenly demigods, including King Indradeva, took shelter of my arms, which were marked with the Gandiva bow. To kill the demon named Nivatakavaka, O king, descendant of Ajamidha, at the present moment I am bereft of the supreme personality of Godhead, by whose influence I was so powerful. Purport. The heavenly demigods are certainly more intelligent, powerful, and beautiful, and yet they had to take help from Arjuna because of his Gandiva bow, which was empowered by the grace of Lord Sri Krishna. The Lord is all powerful, and by his grace, his pure devotee can be as powerful as he may desire, and there is no limit to it. And when the Lord withdraws his power from anyone, he is powerless by the will of the Lord.
14. Hare Krishna, Sasya Madhuri.
Hare Krishna.
Yes.
Translation. The military strength of the Kauravas was like an ocean in which there dwelled many invincible existences, and thus it was insurmountable. But because of his friendship, I, seated on the chariot, was able to cross over it. And only by his grace was I able to regain the cows and also collect by force many helmets of the kings, which were bedecked with jewels that were sources of all brilliance. Purport. On the Kaurava side, there were many stalwart commanders like Bhishma, Drona, Kripa, and Karna, and their military strength was as insurmountable as the great ocean. And yet it was due to Lord Krishna's grace that Arjuna alone, sitting on the chariot, could manage to vanquish them one after another without difficulty. There were many changes of the commanders on the other side, but on the Pandavas side, Arjuna alone on the chariot driven by Lord Krishna could manage the whole responsibility of the great war. Similarly, when the Pandavas were living at the palace of Virata incognito, the Kauravas picked a quarrel with King Virata and decided to take away his large number of cows. While they were taking away the cows, Arjuna fought with them incognito and was able to regain the cows along with some booty taken by force, the jewels set on the turbans of the royal order. Arjuna remembered that all this was possible by the grace of the Lord.
Is Sasya there? Sasya Madhuri.
Hare Krishna. Translation. It was he only who withdrew the duration of life from everyone and who in the battlefield withdrew the speculative power and strength of enthusiasm from the great military phalanx made by the Kauravas, headed by Bhishma, Karna, Drona, Shalya, etc. Their arrangement was expert and more than adequate. But he, Lord Sri Krishna, while going forward, did all this. Purport. The absolute personality of Godhead, Lord Sri Krishna, expands himself by his plenary Paramatma portion in everyone's heart, and thus he directs everyone in the matter of recollection, forgetfulness, knowledge, the absence of intelligence, and all psychological activities. Bhagavad Gita 15.15. As the Supreme Lord, he can increase or decrease the duration of life of a living being. Thus, the Lord conducted the battle of Kurukshetra according to his own plan. He wanted that battle to establish Yudhishthira as the emperor of this planet, and to facilitate this transcendental business, he killed all who were on the opposite party by his omnipotent will. The other party was equipped with all military strength, supported by big generals like Bhishma, Drona, and Shalya, and it would have been physically impossible for Arjuna to win the battle had the Lord not helped him by every kind of tactic. Such tactics are generally followed by every statesman, even in modern warfare, but they are all done materially by powerful espionages, military tactics, and diplomatic maneuvers. But because Arjuna was the Lord's affectionate devotee, the Lord did all this himself without personal anxiety by Arjuna. That is the way of the devotional service to the Lord. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. We'll stop it here. So one of the summaries, Lord Sri Krishna is the most merciful. The more merciful than Lord Sri Krishna is his devotees. One should take shelter of his devotees, offer whatever food, anything for the satisfaction of Lord Sri Krishna. Apart so many things, this is what I understood as of today. Thank you very much for joining today's session. वाञ्छा कल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्येव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। अनंतकोटि वैष्णववृंद की जय। श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय। श्री प्रभुपाद की जय। So we'll meet again on Thursday. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Srivastava. Thank you, Ganesh Prabhu. Thank you, Swapna Mataji. Thank you, Pushkala. Thank you, Sarjana Mataji and Abhishek Prabhu. Thank you so much.